time.
Welcome back to One Leg at a Time, the podcast about health, wellness, fun, recovery, and music. I'm your host, Dr. Deen Anbar, and I'm interviewing other musicians and creatives about their process, their priorities, and the things that they do to achieve their goals. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Will Brahm. Let's get some energy going today. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling great. Will, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Yeah.
I have to say, you rule, man. Every time I send your clips to people, I'm just like, there's so much about you. You're like the better looking, more talented version of me. You're everything I want to be.
We look a lot alike, especially with the glasses.
Honestly,
and
this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
A lot alike.
You are like the version of me that I could have been, that I strive to be. And now you're sitting here at my show.
Yes.
Welcome.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm a consumer of your show. I enjoy the show.
I don't even know. I don't have a response to that. Because why would Will Brahm be listening to my show? I don't know.
Because I'm a modern member of society who intakes podcasts like water in my ears.
I love podcasts. We were just saying, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I get burned out on music.
Mm-hmm.
What do you listen to?
Some podcasts that I really like. I love Joe Rogan. I love Corey Wong's Wong Notes.
Is that good? I haven't checked it out.
Great podcast.
Yeah.
He's a great interviewer.
Yeah.
I listen to Dipped in Tone sometimes, which is like an ultimate gear nerd podcast.
I was going to ask you about gear stuff because, I was just at your album release show here in LA.
Thank you for coming to that.
Dude, first of all, Club TG, great room.
Great room.
Really like a perfect place to do a show like that. The band was incredible. I mean, the music was incredible. And I was looking at your gear. You've got some pretty cool gear on there. Actually, you inspired me to put a compressor back on my pedal board.
Okay.
Which immediately, I don't know why I didn't have one on for so long. It just helps so much.
Yeah.
Especially with single coil. But you've got humbuckers in your Strat.
Yes. So the realm that I live in is Stratocasters with mini humbuckers.
How'd you get into that? We're going to start with a little bit of gear talk, right? This is for the boys.
Yes. So I got into Stratocasters actually almost exactly 5 years ago. I got a Strat.
Is that green one that you play?
The green one, yes. The antique olive green Strat.
Yeah.
And for a number of years, I had single coils in it. And there's a lot of things I love about it, about single coils. The percussive aspect, the note clarity, especially when you play chords. But if I'm playing like bebop, or if I'm trying to really cover a lot of ground between comping and playing single notes, single coils are a very inaccurate, unforgiving sound. They sound great as a vintage instrument.
I find them hard to get the kind of elaborate range of dynamics that you want compared to a humbucker.
Well, for me, playing trio 95% of the time, covering chords and melodies, coming from a jazz trio background, mini humbuckers are great because they're not as woofy sounding as my 335.
Are those mini hums that you have in the Strat, or are they?
Yeah, I mean, any type of single coil sized humbucker you would call
a mini hum. I guess the JBEs in my Strat.
I don't know what those are.
Joe Barden. It's the same guy who made the Danny Gatton Telly.
Yeah.
I forget if it's the bridge pickup or I think it's his bridge pickup. But when I was doing the same kind of mod to my Strat, I have it's 3 of those in there. They're great.
They're quieter. They've got more low end. They've got more sustain. They're great. I am wondering why they're not more common in stock Stratocasters. As a small, eloquent evolution of how a Stratocaster is sold at point A.
Yeah.
Mini humbuckers in a Strat are awesome.
I guess that just depends on what people want out of their guitars. I don't know if I don't think as many people relate to guitars the way we do, where we need them to be tools that cover a lot of ground. I think a lot of people look at them as this guitar does this thing.
Fair enough.
And, I have some guitars like that. I just don't use them as often, and they're not as useful to me over the course of a month of work. I'd rather have one thing that can cover more ground.
Yes.
Hence a Strat with some humbuckers in it.
But you were talking about your compressor. What kind of compressor do you like?
The one that I got is the, it's the Origin one.
Oh, the Cali 76? Yeah. Those are great.
But you've got the old school.
I got a Boss CS3 right now. I've been bouncing between a few. I like the Boss one.
It's a very distinct sound.
The thing that's cool about that one is the tone knob is really effective for like more or less high end, and also the way it grabs onto a note after you're sustaining it.
Yeah.
You can control the period of like, past this amount of time of holding a note, I'm going to want it to really sustain.
Totally.
And it does that very well.
Yeah.
And the price is right.
The price is
pedals,
right.
I mean,
tell you the only reason, because I bought one of those when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing it's missing is a level knob or like a mix knob.
A blend knob. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Can't
trying to
have
talk you out of it.
everything.
Honestly, I thought it was cool to see it on your board.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's the first thing in your chain. It's that compressor.
I've become a giant gear nerd with pedals and with amps and things, just so that I can best share the musical message.
Yeah.
Which translates into being a gear nerd.
It does. I mean, because it's one of those things where it's just like the best case scenario is I'm not thinking about any of this stuff at all. And like getting the right gear that gets you to the point where you can go, all right, cool. I know what it's going to sound like and I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's setting yourself up for success in your musical expression.
Ultimate expression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, your tone is really good.
Thank you.
We got to talk chorus pedals.
Oh, please.
Let's get into the nitty gritty.
Let's do it.
Where are you from actually?
Born and raised in Portland, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest.
I didn't know that. You guys have what? Donuts? You got a river?
Yeah, that sums it up. We got rain.
You got rain.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Yeah, coffee. And you got guitars.
True.
What got you into playing guitar?
Well, I got a guitar for Christmas of 8th grade. My dad bought me a Squier Supersonic.
Okay.
Super funky, sparkly silver guitar. And I had been into music forever. I had been listening to my dad's record collection as far back as I remember. Ghostbusters soundtrack, Prince 1999.
Yeah.
You know, Booker T and the MGs. So music always just called to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think guitar just kind of happened to be the vessel that I like bridged with to make music. But I think even if I didn't play guitar, I would still make music.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm obsessed with it. And like now my relationship with music, there's like the career aspect, there's the achievement aspect, but at the end of the day, I love listening and playing music.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good.
In an alternate universe where you never got that Squier, what do you think you'd be doing?
Great question. Maybe playing drums?
Yeah.
I feel like drums is something that I physically feel very tethered to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty uncoordinated drummer, but I think it's just like anything, like, there's no substitute for sitting and working something out. And, I was obsessed with music too. And like, as soon as for me, it was an Epiphone. It was like whatever that version of a Les Paul is, that's like a slab.
Yes.
And that was it was rented for me before I got my first guitar, which was a Sam Ash Helly.
How old were you when you got your first guitar?
8th grade.
8th.
Yeah.
That seems
That's
like
the
a
year.
solid
Wow.
age.
Yeah.
What got you into music? Like, what was the first thing that grabbed you?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it was before I was really conscious, but if I look at pictures, like baby pictures of myself, I would be like holding objects like a guitar.
Interesting.
And then you look at pictures and there's like a crappy Fender Champ amplifier hidden in the background. So I feel like, because, my dad dabbled in music.
Yeah.
I feel like it was always just kind of lightly around.
Okay.
And it was something that I just physically resonated with.
What was he listening to? What was like in the house? What was the soundtrack?
Stax Records, Elvis, Booker T and the MGs, stuff like that.
So cool music.
Yeah, like Motown guitar-driven R&B soul.
Yeah.
You know?
That's cool.
Yeah.
What was the music that kind of like, was there a community? Like, because for me, I wouldn't say that it was something that I, like the music that my dad listened to was too esoteric. It was like a lot of Spanish music, Hebrew music, Russian music, and it was like so emotional. And I kind of didn't know what to do with those feelings. And I was already a big feelings kid. I stayed away from it to a certain degree until Hanson. And then like Eminem and Limp Bizkit. And then like I got really into metal, Rage Against the Machine. And like all of a sudden that there was like a community, like me and my little 8th grade friends, like, we were writing graffiti on walls, and it was like this. It felt very emotional.
Yeah.
And it was something to connect to. And then when I started playing guitar, it was so that I could be in a band. I was like, I want to replicate this thing that I'm like completely obsessed with. But like the inroad wasn't so much through what was, in the house when I was so what was that? I'm just wondering.
What was the end game? Or
like, what was the inroad? Like in terms of you, like, did you see yourself doing this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think my answer is it just happened to me. I didn't make a conscious decision. It's just at some point I went, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That, and the older I get, the more I realize how fortunate I am in that regard, because I never had to choose a career path. It chose me. And then you're tasked with, how do I make it work?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I get to do what I love. Now I need to figure out ways to, monetarily and logistically, financially, whatever, make that work. But the passion, it just grabbed onto me.
Yeah. And if that's not there, then it's just like, what's the point of pursuing this?
Well, I think about that. When I think about my music as a business, and I compare my business being me, my music, to other people running a business of, shipping crackers, I go, wow, I feel much more inspired thinking about my music than I would about shipping crackers or whatever it may be. But regardless, whatever the business is, there's the journey of learning how to run a business that we all have to do.
We all have to do, and like it's not taught to us that way.
No.
Especially not artists.
No. And I think I spent a lot of years trying to just figure out how to like keep myself with a roof over my head, kind of just doing the same stuff that I was shown to do, which is like you play the gigs, you do the gigs, and like not really thinking beyond just gig to gig. And like I will say that now, for the first time probably in my life, I'm like looking at this from a much more long-term strategic, angle, which, let's see what happens. But like, it's a lot different, but it feels a lot more fulfilling than just like, I go to this gig, I go to this gig, I learn this song for this person, I learn this song for this person, It feels like there's something to work towards.
Yeah, I think the older we get, the better it is to think further ahead.
Yeah.
And that can influence our decisions today or our mindset and attitude in where we currently are.
Totally.
I think that's huge.
Well, it's also like, it's not the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. Like, that same $200 or $500 or whatever that you might make in a day's work, you're not going to buy a house.
Doesn't take you quite as far.
It really doesn't. So we're kind of forced to do that and to think this way.
We have to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Everybody does. Even if you're working a 9 to 5, you still have to think in that mindset in order to.
And it's a privilege to be an entrepreneur because it activates your mind.
Wait, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Have you ever thought, has there ever been a point where you kind of like considered a different option? Like, and I'm asking you this because right around when I was 30, I moved to LA when I was like 30. And I didn't really move here with a plan. I was just like burnt out on New York City, had been doing the gig thing in New York City for a long time. And when I moved here, I was like, I like music. I love music. It's not that I don't love music, but also like who decides what they're going to do when they're in 8th grade? Because I kind of had the same trajectory as you. And I thought maybe I could try to have like a second act as a fiction writer. Because that's another thing that I really love is like fiction. And, before music, I was really into art. And like, not that I would have tried to be an artist, but I did think about trying to write fiction.
Yeah.
And that was actually the thing that initially sparked me to want to go and do the doctorate, because I was like, I want to be a fiction writer. And I was like, but I have no writing chops. And I've been doing music for long enough to know the thing to do to get chops is to just do the thing. Do it. I need to be writing. So I started writing about the only thing that I really know, which is music. And I was writing educational music articles. I was writing album reviews. At the time, I was just still new in LA. And, this thing of going to get the doctorate kind of fell into my lap. Yeah.
You asked if I had ever considered doing.
I'm curious.
No. In my case, I never did. In my case, deciding to do different things would be under the umbrella of being a full-time guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
So, am I a composer? Am I a sideman? Am I a band leader? Am I an educator? Am I a content creator? It goes on and on and on.
So you're all of the above.
Now I'm all of the above. So in a way, yes, because I'm not just playing guitar 20 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've expanded the ways that my music affects my life, but I never once considered doing something else outside of playing guitar.
Yeah.
No.
I want to ask you about, well, wait, let me go back. Because when do you start playing gigs? Like, when do you start actually getting serious about guitar? When do you move to LA? Like, what's the kind of...
Graduated high school in 2007 and moved to Southern California. I went to Cal State Long Beach, got my bachelor's in jazz performance.
Okay.
Studied with Ron Eshte, fantastic.
Yeah, he's really great.
Guitar player who is good for me because he comes from the old school of accompanying vocalists, knowing the songbook of composers like George Gershwin, Cole Porter, Jules Stein, Jerome Kern, and that was totally foreign to me.
Did he ever get you into the 7-string thing?
No, and he never pushed it either.
Yeah.
But all I took away was, wow, when he comps, it sounds so much fuller than when I comp.
It's huge. I mean, it's such an incredible
that
sound.
low B string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a lot. Okay, so you moved to Long... I live in San Pedro.
Yes, I remember us talking about that.
I don't know if I... Okay, yeah.
Shout out San Pedro.
Yeah.
Alva Showroom.
Dude, honestly, Alva's, the beach, Perozzi's.
It's a great area.
It really is.
I love that area.
So...
That's when I moved.
So that's when you moved.
Right out of high school. Kind of a perfect time to like restart your life. If I think about it. I mean, moving, you've done it. Relocating is a serious thing. But at my age, I had, as many ties as a high schooler has, which is like ties, but not really. You're completely mobile.
Yeah.
You can just relocate.
Why did you decide to come here?
To Southern California?
Yeah.
Well, it was cheaper than New York. I got offered a better scholarship.
At the time, it was cheaper than New York.
Yeah, at the time it was cheaper than New York. I got a good scholarship. The weather was great. Had some extended family here. It's one state away.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of been a West Coast guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I fell into it. I was like, I'm from Chicago. And then my move was to New York.
What age did you move to New York?
Right after college. I did my undergrad at DePaul, and then I was like, I'm going to New York City. For me, the guy who really, the thing was seeing Wayne Krantz. This was, dude, I got a gig with a band that I was in college at doing one of those late night at the Blue Note gigs.
Nice.
So we drive from Chicago to New York all through the night.
Oh, man.
I go and crash with my buddy at his dorm at NYU. And he's like, no matter what, you have to come with me on a Thursday night to the 55 bar to see this guy play guitar.
Legendary.
And I'm like, all right, sure. Whatever you say. We go. This is before Wayne ended his residency. So he'd been doing it every Thursday for 10 years. And it was incredible, but it wasn't the commodity that it became when he kind of made it more limited.
Sure.
There was maybe 8 people there. Wayne comes on and I was never the same. And I was like,
speaking of Strat players, Wayne Krantz, man. Come
totally.
on.
I never had a Strat before I saw Wayne.
Did that inspire you to get a Stratocaster?
Of course it did. And then a couple of months after that, or I guess before when I had moved there, I bought a bass after seeing him because Tim LaFave just
So you got, okay.
Yeah.
What kind of
everything.
Bass?
It was, I don't even remember. It was
something
really, this kind of essentially the equivalent of a Temu bass, and the frets would cut my hand.
Ooh,
I was never going to be a bass player, but I was just, Tim's bass playing is so infectious. I was like, I want to be able to do this at least a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is a funny story. I remember seeing Wayne with Tim and Keith playing on a Friday night. And then on a Saturday night, I was out with some friends at a bar, and there was a cover band in the corner, no light on them or anything. And they're just playing covers. And I see this dude just playing, and I'm like, I think that's Tim LaFave.
Yeah.
And literally the night before, he was playing, life-changing music for
at the 55
enthusiastic crowd. No, the night before was actually at a Bitter End show.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah, but that's the trajectory of a musician is you play a legendary show one night.
Yeah.
And then you play a hotel lobby gig the next afternoon.
But when you're 23, you're like, all of a sudden I'm in the presence of my hero who I just saw. And I was like, dude, I just saw you last night. He's like, thanks, man. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, literally, he said, $100 is $100.
True that.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cool.
Well, and being a musician, you know, there's the service industry side of being a musician that we've all done that's useful as an instrumentalist to do, like you said, the background music gigs.
Yeah.
And if you choose, you can learn a lot from that that you can then implement in your shows.
It's invaluable.
To put on a better show.
It is worth it 100%, you know, and there's people who make a career out of that, which is totally cool. But I think it's just a good thing to do for a little bit anyway. It's taught me so much.
Putting in the hours. Like you're just. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like getting your chops up and being able to do anything. I wanted to ask you about, because you made a kind of a remark about like having 20 hours in a day, 24 hours in a day. How do you kind of structure, like, how do you get to the point that you are now? How do you think about organizing your time? Because that's such a huge part of what we have to do, and no one's making our schedules for us.
Absolutely. I do the same thing every day.
This is what I want to talk about.
Yeah. Whether I'm on the road, whether I'm home, I have the same tasks I have to achieve. They modulate slightly depending, but basically, I break my day into 35-minute segments.
I love this.
Like, this is
let's go.
Hardcore numbers. People go, why 35 minutes? Well, it's half an hour plus 5 minutes for spillage.
Minutes, yeah.
You're inevitably going to answer a text message or check Instagram or something. So I wake up, I do office work, like booking, scheduling, all the non-creative. I call it office.
That's the first part of your day.
First part of my day. And I get caffeinated.
That happens throughout my day, but everyone's different.
And then I go exercise because I'm caffeinated and I've kind of cleared my brain of all the junk, like mediation things that I have to do.
What's the exercise? How did that factor in? Have you always been an exercise guy?
No. I started really committing myself to exercise. Actually, it was around July 2022. So almost 3 years ago. Yeah. And it just became a daily ritual of as much of a mental thing as a physical thing.
Yeah. Mental, physical, spiritual. I mean, it means so much to me now. And I'm always interested in talking to other people who do it because.
Yeah, well, I'd love to talk about that. I mean, basically my exercise, I do just under 20 minutes of some type of cardio. And then I do leg stuff, chest or core stuff, and arms. Basically 4 segments. So like, let's say cardio, legs, chest or arms, and core.
You do all that every day?
Yeah, and I've lightened up a little bit on the load that I do because inevitably my days get busier. But the ritual of it, the doing it every day. Sundays I have an early church gig, so I only have time to do cardio. So that's like my day off.
Yeah.
But I don't want a day off now. Like if I physically can't, if I don't have the time to do it, which is almost never because I'll just wake up earlier. If I have a 5 a.m. lobby call, I don't give a shit. I'll just get up at 3:30.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir.
You know, I think we're similar in that way. And
I think we really are.
Where there's really a lot to be gained from putting more stress on yourself. Otherwise, you just get weaker, whether it's mentally or physically. You know?
Interesting. Yeah. I guess I never really thought about it in those terms. For me, it has more to do with like, if I do these things, then I feel like me. It's more like insurance that like I'll be bringing who I really am to the table. Within reason, but like, I'm with you.
When did you start committing to exercise?
Around the same time. Just kidding. Around the same time.
Kind of, actually. Maybe there was just something in the air. It was around, June, July of 2022.
No way.
Yeah,
really?
that's what I'm saying. Like, you got
that's
this right
amazing.
now.
But how special is that when like, for me, it was like a switch finally flipped.
Yeah, but here's the difference. I don't know what the circumstances were that brought you to it. For me, it was, I was licking my wounds after my second go in drug rehabilitation. And I was feeling really not good. And was kind of masking like the initial stages of my sobriety in like I was hiding out in the apartment. I was eating a lot of junk food. I wasn't really touching a guitar. I was not feeling good. And then a gig came my way that I was like, that all of a sudden gave me purpose.
What gig was this?
This was the gig with Brooks Nielsen.
Right.
Yeah.
A gig you still do.
A gig I still do. And that was the thing where I was like, all right, if I don't figure out these other things in my life, because like, yes, it's obviously getting sober is a huge part of just like my recovery process, but it's not the only thing.
It's not enough.
There's a saying in the like AA community, which is, if you have a drunken horse thief, if you take away the alcohol, you still have a horse thief.
Okay.
And all that really, I love the little AA saying.
That's a great.
But really what it means is that like you're still who you are. Like if you take away the, the substance use, the alcohol, the drugs, whatever.
You got to go deeper.
You still got to go deeper. You got to get to the root of what the thing is. And in my case, it wasn't just the alcohol either. It was like all the other stuff.
The lifestyle, the habits,
Yeah.
the mindset.
And so what started out as just like, I want to just try to drop some lbs, and I would go and like walk and do the elliptical and do yoga. And then that kind of like started me down this path, which I then latched onto as some other things started to come up. Like I was a bad breakup, and just like it started to, I was feeling good, and I was getting a lot emotionally out of it from like showing up and doing this thing and doing
Holding
it for
yourself
me.
accountable.
Yeah, getting
Having
the
more respect for
endorphins.
yourself.
I was so sick for such a long time that something started to shift in my brain where I was like, I owe it to myself every day, if I am capable of doing something, to do it.
Absolutely.
Because I took this part of my life for granted for so long, not caring,
You nailed it. You owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
That if, self-love is an interesting term because
I'm good. I'm pretty good at that too.
well, self-love,
Cut that.
I don't view self-love as taking it easy on myself. I view self-love as self-scrutiny.
It's right.
And it's like you said, I owe it to myself to treat my body better,
Yeah,
to exercise, to think about what I put in my body,
totally.
to think about how I spend my time, to think about who I spend my time with.
Yeah.
And I think that's a symptom of we get older and we start to audit the decisions we make.
Yeah.
I think it's a natural progression and a good one.
I think so too. I mean, in my case, it took like crises to get to those points.
That's not uncommon though.
No,
I feel like
yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
you need to, as they say, burn the boats. Like I'm going to ditch every damn thing that I'm doing.
Burn the boats.
I've never heard that saying before.
I haven't either.
Well, it comes from
I think that's what we're going to call this episode.
burn the boats.
Yeah.
Actually, that's great. When the Vikings used to, come to a new territory, they would land and they're going to take over that territory.
So
they're going to burn the
so they
boats.
can't go
There's no
back.
option other than to take over the territory.
It's like in Batman where he only is able to get out of the cave when he jumps without the rope.
Right. Precisely.
Yeah. And that
Dark
guy's
Knight.
like Dark Knight Rises. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly it.
Without
Burn
the rope.
boats.
I love when the guy's like, without the rope.
No, but that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And like, I know you feel the same way when you make a commitment to take better care of your body. It's like, in your case, if it's drugs, or in my case, if it was like drinking alcohol, like,
were you drinking a lot?
I drank for a period of 10 years, I drank probably almost every night because it became part of the lifestyle of being a gigging musician, There was a period where I started exercising, but I was still drinking like on gigs.
Yeah.
And then one day I realized like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of myself in the morning and I'm poisoning myself at night.
Yeah.
This is, you could argue like verging on insanity. Like, what are you doing? You think you're like, so it's poison. And for me, I don't need it anymore. And quite frankly, if I have a drink, like if someone offers me a drink on a gig, if I have a sip, I usually end up feeling like crap. So my body rejects it now. I don't even want it.
Yeah. It's funny how that kind of happens. And like, I definitely don't judge and I don't tell people you should or shouldn't do anything. I know for myself, how I feel. And I do think it's interesting to see people who hang on to this thing of like, I like to party. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Party all you want.
Do the thing.
But like, I can see that you're hanging on to an ideal more than like what this is actually giving you.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
and like that's your path. You know, and there's like I'm not trying to take anybody else's inventory when I say that because it's not really it's not about that. It's just interesting to clock it. You know.
Yeah, hanging on to an ideal and maybe I do this more and more now. I think this is a more healthy thing to do more often in smaller doses rather than once every 10 years in a giant life change, but like self audits and like looking at ourselves and going, is what I'm doing still helpful? Was it helpful at a time? Is it still helpful? Is it actually harming me now?
Do you have a practical way of going through that process? I'm just curious, like, because it is important to be able to do it. And like we're saying, most people, I don't think, would actually hold a mirror that close to what they're doing and say, this is serving me and this is not. And so I'm wondering, like in your case, what does that look like?
To be honest, I feel like I have more brain capacity since I stopped drinking. So I'm just thinking more legitimately.
Yeah.
And whether I'm thinking about something I want to achieve down the line, something I need to achieve today, inevitably there will be things that come up that I go, oh, well, this is preventing me from doing that. Or, oh, I feel a certain way right now. And, you know, am I going to just be reactionary and be a slave to my emotions? It's really hard for me not to.
Yeah.
And you know what makes it even harder is drinking.
Yeah, totally.
Like it, as they say, it lowers your inhibitions, right?
It lowers your inhibitions and it lowers you. And yeah, anything that's kind of going on, all of a sudden it might give you, you're hyper focusing on the wrong thing or it's just
It also kind of gives you an excuse. Like some people are able to say, oh, I did that because I was drunk. So there's also that. Not everybody does that, but you can if you want to.
No, but that definitely does happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is annoying.
Well, again, self-scrutiny and in a sense of healthy self-scrutiny of like thinking about, you know, or checking in, all right, what have I been doing the last 6 months? What's helping? What's working? What's not working? It's like running a business, and the business is your life.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Quarterly action reports.
So at that point, okay, so let's keep going. So you have your 35 minutes.
Talk about the routine.
You have your 35. I'm curious about this stuff, and I think it was also because one of the things that was an initial concept for starting this show was like it was when I was on the road, and I was like, I am operating differently than my fellows. I'm getting up, I'm going for a run, I'm finding my place to get fruit or something decent to eat, like, and I'm doing that all in the space when the people around me are not.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what they're doing. Point is, they're not doing what I'm doing. And I realized that, like, there's something to talk about here because I want to know, like, why. It got me thinking about why am I doing this? Why am I so orthodox about my routine? And,
because
like,
you hold yourself to a standard and you owe it to yourself.
So that's what it's sort of become. Initially, it was out of fear. I'm not going to lie. It was just like, oh, I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. No one's holding me accountable to anything. If I'm not serious about this and like making these right choices for myself every day, I'm going to fall off, you know?
Sure. And if you fall off, okay.
Yeah.
Fix it the next day. Like,
for most
what are you
people,
going to do?
that's
Never
true.
make a mistake? We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We have to just, like, progress is not just a linear line in any sense.
That is true. There is something that I've learned about myself, which is that, like, if I start, it takes...
You're all or nothing.
I'm all or nothing.
I hear you.
And in the past, it's taken, like, literally hospitalization to get me off. So that's why it's so serious.
I get it. I totally get it.
So that's how it all kind of, like, started for me. But I just want to go back to this because it's a lot of stuff. Do you go to the gym when you do all this exercise stuff?
Yeah.
I go to the gym. I have a gym that I can walk to.
Oh.
That's cool.
Which is great. Like,
what part of town are you in now?
Yeah.
I live in Long
Give us your
Beach,
address.
in Belmont Shore. So I walk to the gym.
Yeah.
You know, I come home, I shower, and then there's tasks. I call them hard tasks or soft tasks, right? I try to get the hard tasks done as early as possible.
What's a hard task?
Writing. Like I'm at my desk with my guitar, you know, writing.
This is interesting.
I've gotten back into...
This is before you do your exercise or after?
After.
Usually, it depends. Like if I have a long day, the gym might be the final point before I go out for
Let's
the
talk
day.
about like in an ideal day, though.
Let's talk about an ideal day. All
So,
right.
so stuff always comes up.
All right, here's an ideal day. I wake up, 35 minutes of office work, 35 minutes of writing, 35 minutes of reading classical music.
Okay.
I've been back into the two-part inventions.
Love
like
that.
just like how does it sound if I'm sitting alone with my guitar, like playing 2 lines?
Yeah.
There's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, again, it's a real self-audit. Like, this is about as stripped down as you can get in the art of making music. How does it sound?
And it's just like the essence of music is Bach.
Totally.
I mean, yeah.
I go to the gym. I come home. I allocate time to work on all the channels that I work on. If it's YouTube or Instagram, all the social media blanket stuff, you know, I carve out 35 minutes for that, you know, to make sure that if I need to share content or edit a video or edit a recording, I you know, set aside time. I listen back to recordings of my shows and I try to mix them a little bit.
You're really good about doing that. How are you mixing that? So, because I see you do a lot of like cell phone angle stuff. Are you then mixing that audio?
It depends. If it's a show of mine, I bring my Zoom H1 recorder.
Oh, you
and
do?
I record that audio. But then I also video it on my phone. And depending on the room, the iPhone, the compressor in that iPhone video is very good, actually.
It can be pretty flattering.
Sometimes that sounds better than my Zoom H1, and sometimes not. And so that goes under what I call let's call it content creation time, 35 minutes. Is that all the hard tasks? You know, now I also set aside 35 minutes for getting sounds on my guitar, like with pedals, with amps, all that stuff, sound crafting,
This is what I'm saying. You are a more evolved human than me. That's something that I always think about. Whatever. Okay.
Well, it started as I would feel like this strange form of like, am I being strangely immature, getting so into guitar pedals and guitar sounds? Whereas now it's like, I treat it like a science.
Yeah.
And the outcome or the goal is, if I invite you to a show of mine, I'm going to share with you sounds and a musical experience that I've put a lot of time and energy and emotion into.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's a science of emotion.
Yeah.
You know,
it is it can be a never ending rabbit hole of just like gear. And I think it's important to have like an end game. Like, what am I really trying to do? I also like to be able to say, like, I do the best with what I have under any circumstances.
Absolutely.
I kind of had to like take a step back from being the pedal chaser. Like, I was getting really...
It never ends. And they don't want it to end.
Yeah.
They don't want it to end.
They don't want it to end.
There's always a new pedal. You know?
Well, I started to get really into those like deeply esoteric, like, oh, here's this Maxon pedal that only, was released in Japan, and like, and I love those.
I love all that shit.
But like, it's cool. But it's also endless, and it's also like, now I'm just buying pedals just because I've never seen them before.
Yeah, but if you front load that like in the beginning and gather an orchestra of pedals, then you start to gain context. Of you learn how things sound, and then you get quicker at diagnosing if you bring something new in, how you could use it, or actually this isn't very useful to me.
You're right.
Yeah, you got to kind of invest some more time and money on the front end of that to get to get.
You do. That's the thing. And I was like, I realized that I was kind of tired of spending money on something that there wasn't really a purpose to it at a certain point. So I've kind of scaled that back. Also, though, it does help, like when you're making a record, for example, when you're buying things specifically to sort of fulfill a vision that you have for that. And you just made a record.
Yes, freshly released. And you came to the record release show.
I did. What was that process like?
What I learned so much making this record. Anthony Fung was on drums. Luca Alamano was on upright bass. We tracked for 2 days, back to back. Third day I came in and did some overdubs and maybe a couple edits and things like that.
That's it. That was...
Yeah, so it was basically made in 3 days, at least the recording of it, right?
Sure.
But what I really learned is to spend more time preparing it alone first. Like, get it 90% there.
Yeah.
You with your idea and your goals, because everything's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so have all these things taken care of so that you and the band and the engineer and the mixing engineer and the, you know, can like bring it to life that much more because you've already dealt with all the arrangement aspects, all the form aspects, all the timing aspects,
dude,
all the voicing aspects.
Funny that you say that because I'm in the same spot right now where I've been writing music to go in to make a new record. And I keep having that same thought, which is like, no, this isn't ready yet. And in the past, I've done the thing of like, I'll take the band to the studio. We'll figure it out when we're there.
That can be cool too, but it's a different type of record.
It's a different type of
totally
record.
Cool, but it's different.
I want this one. I'm in that same spot where I'm like, I am scrutinizing every note. I want to have my arrangements. I want to have my concepts. And especially because this time too, I'm hearing different types of ensembles. Like,
So what's your instrumentation range looking like thus far?
A big thing is that for this one, I want to be playing some of it on acoustic and some of it on electric guitar. And some of it, you know, solo, or maybe some like one I have now an idea of to do with like fretless bass and acoustic guitar. And then I could also see that with like string trio accompaniment.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm in the process, which I never really took this seriously before, of demoing things out and like going in Logic and just
the record once
up
before you make it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. I mean, you don't have to do that, but that is very useful.
Well, it's like I don't have an infinite budget, and I do have a concept for something that like I'm still ironing out exactly what I want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to rush into the part where I'm just like, okay, well, I wanted to have it done by spring so I could release it in the summer. It's just like, it's okay. You know, it's okay to wait a little bit.
Think about like,
or not wait,
commit to a recording date.
Yeah.
Right. And work backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Initially, I wanted to be in the studio recording about now-ish, but that was because the first concept that I had for this was that it was going to be mostly solo acoustic.
Okay.
And the more I was writing, the more I was like, this actually could be bigger and different. And I kind of wanted to pull that thread a little bit. And I'm happy so far with everything that's happening.
Great.
It's just taking a little bit long.
Yeah, I hear you. I think, you know, with any task or any goal, setting the end date, meaning like the recording date is this week, and then working backwards.
Sure.
Then you don't have to worry so much about option paralysis because you know where it's going to end up, and you don't get caught in the weeds with, well, what if I try this or what if I try this? Well, no, this will still get me there.
Yeah.
And we did 3 rehearsals prior to the album session.
How much had you been working on those? Like, how much of the music had you gigged around before?
That's a great
with
question.
that?
Yeah. Some I had gigged around, some I hadn't, because some of the music on this album, it's like I had written music that I hadn't become yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now, I mean, you got to hear what I would consider a pretty final product of it at Club TG, where it's like,
yeah,
I wrote the music years ago, and then some of it I hadn't become as a player, stylistically, genre-wise.
Yeah.
And then we recorded it, and oh, well, now how do I like pull off a song like Mayweather Beginning live? Like, I have to play parts differently. I have to approach parts differently. I have to voice things differently. I have to jump between parts that maybe the acoustic guitar was just doing this on the album, whereas I was just doing this on electric. But live, I'm bouncing between both things.
Yeah.
Figuring out sometimes after recording it, how to do it live is its own thing. But also playing a song like Crimes live that I had been doing prior. That
Such a cool song. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun Dire Straits type vibe.
Yeah.
Like playing a song live, I already had an idea of what I wanted it to sound like, and that's what it sounds like on the album. But since the album, it's kind of grown into a slightly different groove and tempo live. So it keeps modulating.
Yeah.
Keeps fluctuating.
I think also because I'm sort of a product, like I got bit by the jam band bug when I was in high school and indoctrinated into a little bit of like what that is. There's a protocol there, which is like you work the material out on stage before you get it into the studio.
Yep.
Which I wouldn't say that that's really like jazz is treated a lot more like chamber music. You go in, you write everything. It's kind of is what it is. But I do like wearing something in a little bit, you know, before like bringing it to the studio.
Absolutely. Whether it's gigs or rehearsals, and you will play differently in those two settings.
For me, gigs, I mean, rehearsals, obviously, yeah, especially if you're writing original music that's complicated, you know, you want to have that. But then like to take it to the stage at least once, just to sort of understand, it's like, okay, this is what it really feels like to do this thing in front of other people's ears.
Well, and in the context of a set, in the context of timing, in the context of energy, of where it falls on the set, who's going to solo first, that's its own context as opposed to in an album. And then what's the track order on the album? I mean, inevitably, I had a track order in rehearsals, and of course it changed by the time I had finished mixing, getting it mixed and mastered. Like, no, I'm going to put this song later. Like, it changes, and it'll continue to change, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. Making records will always be very important for us as artists.
Yeah.
Because they are like the big, meaty chunk of our art that defines an era of ours. And if I look back at the last 2 years of myself, artistically, physically, stylistically, aesthetically, it's like this album defines that.
Yeah.
And that's a special thing. And so now, having wrapped this album and had the final of 3 album release shows just last week, it's like, oh, cool. I think I'm kind of wrapping that era. And now, like, I can start thinking about a new era, and like, whether it's putting a new filter on music I've written since, or whether it's like I said, revisiting the 2-part inventions and just going like, you've done all this, let's strip it all the way back down to like counterpoint. And your guitar with no reverb on it, just playing it.
Yeah.
Like, I think.
Have you seen the Noel Johnston? You know him? He's the North Texas guitar instructor.
What does he say?
Well, he has like books on Bach on guitar and stuff. It's cool.
Well, it's a good check-in, right?
Yeah.
But for me, making an album is. I'm at a point in my life where I'm fortunate as an artist that it is the center of my world. Now, of course, I need to make a living. I need to pay bills. I need to do things like that. But if I can give that much of myself to an era of my music, that is what I consider success. You know, and so it's a daily act rather than like some type of like far gone thing that I'm going to reach.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, it's resets every day.
Yeah.
So I love making albums. I'm looking forward to making more. And I think in today's realm of like what we would call short form content, I'm all about it. I play the game, do the thing. We have to learn, we have to evolve, but focus on eras of your art.
Yeah.
And make an album that defines that era.
Yeah.
And then like 10 years from now, be like, I'm going to like bring back the Distance to Empty vibe.
Yeah.
Like, that's how we look at all of our favorite artists.
Yeah.
Right?
Will Brahm's greatest hits.
Yeah, sure. All that. But like eras of an artist. Like if I say an artist like John Mayer.
Sure.
Like, what's your favorite Mayer album or Mayer era?
Well, I mean, I'm a product of the Continuum era.
Yes, most of us are, right?
I was going to say.
And what defines that era? Like his songwriting style was very evocative of, I want to say like the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s type thing. The instrumentation, the vibe.
Yeah.
But then there were elements of more modern things. And then there's like the sob rock era, which is a total like 80s Clapton type thing.
Totally.
And then there's the Born and Raised era, which is like more Americana, verging on country, folk. Like, we as artists use albums to define those eras. So do that. Don't just let giant decades pass without like era defining albums.
Yeah.
It's important for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And it feeds our art.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with thinking on that scope when you're writing or coming up with a concept.
Or thinking about it after the fact. I wasn't thinking about an era when I was writing these songs that made up the album.
No, but you have overarching sort of defining things that you might not be able to articulate in the moment, but you realize that they're sort of moving you in a particular direction, you know, with even just the slightest bit of hindsight. And I think that that's like, even because I also will sometimes write songs that have lyrics, and I'll realize that I'm exploring a theme over and over again without even realizing it at the time. But like, you know, that's another thing that I'm trying to decide on this coming record of mine is I have 3 songs that have lyrics, and if I include them, do I sing them? Do I have somebody else sing them?
Interesting.
Does it sort of take away from like the thesis of the thing that's happening.
Make those demos.
I'm
Make
working.
those demos,
I'm doing
man.
it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, man, this is awesome. Here's what we're gonna do for this segment.
Okay.
You know Dylan Gorenberg.
Yes.
Friend of the pod, past guest.
Yes.
I asked Dylan to write 10 trivia questions for us. So here, let's have the Monotribe give us a little trivia podcast theme. So welcome to the first edition of One Leg at a Time Guitar Trivia. All right. So
love it.
So V is going to ask us the 10 questions that Dylan drafted up, and I can't wait to hear what he came up with.
All right. So, are you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, question number 1. What kind of guitar did Jeff Beck use on his album Blow by Blow?
It's a Strat. I don't know if it's...
He used a Telecaster with a humbucker on that album, even though on the cover
it's a Strat.
Am I thinking the right album? The album with "Cause We've Ended as Lovers"?
Yeah.
He's using a Les Paul on the cover, but he played his Telly.
Oh, I'm thinking of the cover of Wired, where he has the white Strat. Oh my God.
But he played his Telly on the album, even though the cover has him with a Les Paul.
Wow. Okay. Well, answer is Gibson Les Paul.
Did he play the Les Paul on the... All right.
Okay, we'll have to.
Well, he definitely got that one more than you did.
Yeah, sure. Points will go to the guest.
I thought he played the Telly on.
We'll circle back with Dylan and see how.
Even though the Les
his
Paul's on the
answers
cover.
are.
Anyway.
Number 2. What is the time signature of "Money" by Pink Floyd?
Money's in 7.
It's in 7/4.
Yeah.
1-1.
Yeah. I mean, in all fairness,
but we're competing.
That's
we're
why.
competing.
So
Don't
now
hold
it's
back.
a speed. I'm not.
Yeah.
So we're both even right now. So okay, now.
All right.
Niceties are over.
Get serious.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Number 3. How did the Kinks achieve their distortion tone on
Rip Speaker?
You Really Got Me?
Rip Speaker.
Dave Davies slashed his amplifier speaker cone with a razor blade to create a distorted tone.
Dean got it.
Does that qualify? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're cooking.
Now we're on number 4.
Okay.
What is the guitar tuning used in Kashmir by Led Zeppelin?
Oh my God. It's like D-A-D. Is it Dad Gad?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I didn't even know. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, 5. What is Dylan Gorenberg's favorite type of soup?
Tomato. I don't know. What? You must know.
I would say matzo ball. Am I right?
He did say that though. You guys were talking about matzo ball soup on the episode we recorded with him.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah,
Dylan.
that is so funny. Caveat: if either contestant picks lentil soup, they immediately lose the trivia competition.
Okay.
All right. Well,
thank God I said tomato.
Yeah, good thing you said
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, 6. Who played the guitar solo on "Peg" by Steely Dan?
Jay
Graydon. He answered like this much before me if you want to give him the point, but we both kind of...
I would say we could give it to him. There's already 4-2.
Jay Graydon, love Jay Graydon.
Number 7. What guitar did Prince use on the "When Doves Cry" solo?
The Telly, no? Like that off Telly thing? That
I was going to give you guys, there's 4 answers, but...
There's 4?
There's 4?
It's an A, B, C, D, I should have told you.
Oh.
But you are right.
No. Oh, well, okay.
The Hohner Telecaster.
Right.
The Hohner Telecaster. That's an
yes.
important distinction.
Okay. Question number 8. What composer became completely deaf later in life?
Beethoven, no?
Okay. Yep.
That's
okay.
Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that was another ABCD, but all the ABCD ones, you're saying them before.
Tell us which ones are ABCD.
No, it's fine. This is all part of the fun.
You're just getting...
Yeah.
4-4.
Yeah.
Are these all ABCD?
The next 2, 9 and 10. So 9 is ABC and 10 is also, but for double the points is 10. So it's a harder one. So 9.
Do we wait? Do we wait to... We just shout it.
Yeah.
Shout
So we're
it.
going to do 9. What string gauge did Stevie Ray Vaughan...
13s.
Okay.
You got it.
Yeah.
13. Stevie Ray, 13.
Yeah. So 10.
Yeah.
For double the points, It's a hard one, he says.
Okay.
On the original 1959 Gibson Les Paul Standard, what unique feature about the finish makes each guitar visually different from one another? A, they all had custom paint choices at purchase. B, the red dye used was unstable and faded unevenly. C, they were relicked by hand and at the factory. D, each top was sanded using a different grain direction.
B. You're saying B. What was A and B again?
They all had custom paint choices at purchase is A. B is the red dye used was unstable and faded away.
So this is an interesting one because it's 5-4. You could win.
He got it.
What the? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said B. Yeah, B was correct. Yeah.
I'm so glad he gave the options because I didn't know, but I knew all the other ones couldn't be right.
All right.
Damn.
So what do I get?
Well, congratulations, Will.
What's my prize?
What do you get? We'll have something for you on the way out.
Bring me back on the podcast next year.
Yeah.
We'll have something. Anyway, all right. Well, so that just about wraps it up, right?
Yep.
Man, I want to start. Thank you to Dustin, House of Knouse Studios. Thanks to Adrian and V. Thanks to Will Brahm. This was super fun.
Thanks for having me.
You know what to do, right?
Yeah. I say my name and then I say the thing, right?
You don't have to say your name. We know who you are at this point.
I put my pants on one leg at a time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Will Brahm, thank you so much for doing it. And we'll see you here next week.
Put your pants on.